Congratulations, you have discovered another meta egg. And thank you so much for your patience. This was a hard one to find. We're here today with actor, singer-songwriter Andras Jones, but tonight he's joining us in the capacity of a film analyst on most anything that host podcast you can find. The World is Wrong, where Andras, I was talking to Amos Glick last night on this show, and we were talking about your knowledge of movies, and he called you an encyclopedia. And, I agree.
Well, that's a nice way. That's a nice word for it.
What would be a more derogatory name?
I don't know, just a mansplainer, I guess.
Mansplainer. Yeah.
I mean, I generally pull this shit on men because they're the ones more likely to talk to me. But yeah, I tend to be the kind of person who someone's like, oh, what was what was that movie with Patrick Swayze? And I'm like, The Outsiders by Francis Ford Coppola, that also had Tom Cruise and Emilio Estevez, and they're like, no, not that one. And I tend to have lists. I remember the names of people and like directors and actors and people who were in or made films better than I remember more important things. So I would say I'm happy to be an encyclopedia of useful trivia for you and your audience.
No, actually, and I guess I feel that it is useful, especially in this context, because there's a lot that I didn't know about these movies that, like, I mean, I'm not really good with that. I'm good at like remembering what the narrative of the movie is. But as far as like the information on who did it and what else that they have done, that's like a thing that I tend to need help with. And so like, I think that it's a good match to have a conversation about movies with you. And I kind of, I've been wanting to be like invited on The World is Wrong, but I've been almost like embarrassed that I wouldn't be as knowledgeable or well prepared for that matter. But I want to tell you, it was one of my favorite podcasts. If anybody, I did put the movie that we're talking about, The Front.
Yeah.
We will talk about it a little bit later. I put that in the description, which I think is the podcast, right? It's what you've put up on YouTube. Yeah. What was The Front? I'm not sure if I remembered that one or not. Like, what was that movie?
The Front is a movie that was not, it's a Woody Allen movie that Woody Allen starred in, but didn't direct, write, or produce, although I have a feeling he made, I think he contributed in some ways to it because it does have some stamps of his style. But it's a film about the Hollywood blacklist, or just the blacklist in New York City, in this case in the TV business in New York. And Woody Allen plays a sort of anti-intellectual or just unintellectual schmo who's friends with a writer who is a communist, not falsely accused of being a communist, but who is an actual communist. And he gets found out, and so he starts losing all of his jobs as a writer, that a lot of it, so the same way that a lot of his friends are. And so he gets his buddy, played by Woody Allen, to be the front for him, to pretend to be the writer who's turning in these scripts that are written by his friend, who's actually a very good writer. And so Woody pretends to be what he actually is a sort of a pretentious, nebbishy writer. And then his friend, who's played by Michael Murphy, hooks him up with all of these other writer friends of his. So now Woody is now the front for like 5 or 6, 7 different writers, and he's turning in their scripts, and he's making a lot of money and becoming very popular in the TV business. And in all of this, it's all happening. It's a sort of a funny story, while the sort of terror of the encroaching sort of McCarthyite witch hunts are making it get it to a point where Woody Allen has to make his character has to make a moral choice, whether to go along or whether to call out this sort of fascistic impulse in the American psyche that was fully on display, historically in the 1950s, in the entertainment business and academia, in the military, so forth.
1976.
Yes, and what's interesting about it, and I know it's crazy, you have it in front of you. It's crazy that I say, because I can name all these people. I forget the director's name. You see him right there, right?
Let's see, directed by Marlon. What does it say? It's a Martin Ritt. Martin Ritt.
Yes. So Martin Ritt and Zero Mostel, several of the actors and the writers and the director were all blacklisted during the time. So there's an air of authenticity, which I think I'm really glad you asked about that, because it's going to inform how we talk about Jojo Rabbit and Marriage Story. But there is knowing that the film is made by people who suffered through and lived through the McCarthy era and the Hollywood and just the entertainment blacklist and just the blacklists in general, gives the film a little bit more heft. And I think its humor is a lot more informed. I think it's an incredibly funny movie because the people who are making the jokes about their own trauma, and that's where I think the best humor comes from. And it also doesn't cut any corners in terms of the moral questions it's asking, and thereby asking the audience to ask themselves. So yeah, I know a lot of people have a negative attitude about Woody Allen. I think that's incorrect, and I'm happy to explain why. But
Well, I mean, it's a big deal. You're a lot more, I think, informed on the whole situation. I think most people have a perception of Woody that is based off of media.
Hateful anti-Semitic propaganda. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
But what I would say is, even if you have a problem with Woody Allen, if that is keeping you from watching, I think, the only film about the blacklist that was made by blacklisted writers and artists, then you're not doing anyone any favors. There's nothing to be proud of about that. I think it's a really, really, really a truly important American film. And if it's the only Woody Allen film you see, I could say you still haven't seen a Woody Allen film because he didn't direct it.
Yeah, because it's technically not one of his films. Had he started making yearly directorial movies?
Pretty much, yeah. He started in '69 with Take the Money and Run, and then was pretty much making a film a year from there on out. There might have been one or two years between '69 and '70, maybe 1 year between '69 and '75 that he didn't make a film.
So this is like one of those films where he's directing that year, but he's also being directed. And
yeah, that was the year that Annie Hall came out. So it was his sort of the high point of his cultural acclaim.
Wild. But you make the connection between sort of like, what would you call it last show where we would cut off? Red Jews?
Well, let's yeah. Well, basically, if you look at the history of not just McCarthyism, the Red Scares in America, when they were targeting communists, they were also, communist was sort of used as a sort of an umbrella term that could include, well, any of the classes of people who were so poor that a union would have helped their financial, life situation. So that could be Italians, Jews, Black people, and it was sort of like, anyone who wanted a piece of the American pie that was denied it by the system as it currently was situated. Like my great grandfather was was a communist, and he was in America, and he worked for the I think it was, he was an attorney for the NAACP when they were defending black, mostly men in the South, who were facing all white juries and facing basically lynching. And so anyone who supported the movement to oppose lynching was later branded a communist, because that meant giving money to the NAACP, which hired communist lawyers to defend them, because the Bar Association in the United States at that time made it hard for lawyers who wanted to work in a more profitable way to defend unpopular clients, like people like black men facing lynching in the South. So that's just another example of like that, when people talk about communism as if it was really motivated by a desire to combat that ideology, as opposed to use it to scapegoat a wide variety of people who may or may not have any allegiance to that worldview. So when you say, I guess I don't want to jump to that point that you made until we talk about what we're talking about here, which is
sure. But I think that
Yeah.
I think it worked well this way, because I think that it kind of gives more of an educated impact as far as like what that, because I mean it's hard to get from that from Jojo Rabbit to that, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we should have started with that and then lead into Jojo Rabbit. Because it is, I
Yes.
think it's there. I think it's there. Now that we've had this conversation for a while, I understand what you're talking about, but this kind of draws a line of like what the movie Jojo Rabbit, although takes place in World War II, is obviously not about World War II. It's about like a lot more than that, so to speak.
Well, I'm interested to know what you think that what it is about that is more than about World War II.
Well, I mean, okay, so we're gonna probably jump track here, but you've given me a lot to think about as far as saying that the Nazis were kind of like lovable doofuses, and they're almost like,
yeah.
in Jojo Rabbit, it kind of has this feel like you're not really talking about the Nazis. And there's a neurotic and a very like I kind of associate Taika Waititi with Woody Allen, not in his like whole career, but in this particular role, because he kind of inserted himself into a neurotic situation, right? And so there's a sympathy, like not only are the Nazis kind of portrayed as heroes in some points, there's also this feeling that, can you hear
I'm
me?
here. Yeah. Something's over your face.
Well,
Sort
I might have lost my
Tetris.
camera. Well, well, I hope that you understand where I was going with that. I mean,
Yeah, I understand. Go on.
No, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like that is, when you say that, I can see almost like the Woody Allen influence in the sort of the kid who's having like, well, that's not really an influence, but yeah, I can see that, like the kid who we're seeing the film through his eyes, and he is having this sort of conversation in his mind with his mental construct of Hitler. I have to do. Wait, did you go? Oh, now I've lost.
No, I'm still.
Oh, okay, you're still there.
I'm still here. I was trying to fix
So
my camera off air, but whatever.
that's cool.
This is. I hope you don't end up hating live streams at this point. I don't know. This is not the preferred. The reason that this is a good way to do things is because it's low production cost and there's no editing on the other end. But that just creates this complete and utter chaos where just anything could happen. Like, so, I mean, it is what it is. Like, we have to make the most of it. I'm happy now that we can at least have a conversation, because now I feel like we're just like kicking back and having a conversation about movies like you and I have had like multiple times in a row.
Yeah.
And you're one of the people that I like come to with movies, because you have like a deeper understanding of the ins and outs of the industries in a way that I don't understand as well. And so, like, well, I mean, to an extent that I can't even claim to have, you know?
Sure.
But there's also like a deeper understanding, as far as like, I remember like I called you one time and you were talking about like the theories of French filmmaking and all of that. And like there's just so much more that people don't know because it's outside of their decade, or what they were paying attention to, or what was hot when they were fresh and impressionable.
Yeah. As opposed to French impressionists is a totally different thing. Well, yeah. Well, then let's talk. Let's unpack these two films, because they, you know, how did you tell? I guess we could tell people how this started. Is you asked me if there was any sync film thing that I wanted to talk about, and I mentioned to you the synchronicity of the shoes in Jojo Rabbit and Marriage Story, two films starring Scarlett Johansson that came out the same year, which I had never heard anyone talk about before. And I put you on the case, and you know, however much time passed, and then at some point I got a text saying, "Hey, I'm watching it." Oh, okay, I see it. And then like an hour and a half, 2 hours later, oh yes, I see exactly what you're talking about. There is a sync there. And that brings us to like now here exploring what that sync means. I have a couple of ideas, or of certain things that came up to me that I made some notes about. And I guess we sort of referenced it, but we've already tried this once earlier tonight and had massive technical difficulties. And we've just thrown the script out the window, and we're sort of coming back to it. But
and we're still having technical difficulties, but it's a little fun now. Like,
at least we can hear each other. It's
right.
not here. I don't need to see me, you, anyone.
We have people in the chat room. There's Richard Diaz says hi, and then Mr. Integrity Man, howdy, gentlemen. So like there's been people who have wandered in and out. So like before we had you sing a song, because you kind of also said, I remember the phone call, and we were talking about all the ins and outs of this little synchronicity that we got here. And you said, you know what it reminds me of? And you started singing Elvis Costello. And you started singing it. It wasn't like, oh, it's this Elvis Costello. You just started singing it. And so I was like, oh, fuck no. You have to do that on air. I don't know if you're still into it. And I don't know.
You know what? Let's build up to that. Let's build up to that. Let's start with talking about these movies. And I'm curious, is anyone who's on the stream, were you here earlier?
I don't know. You can answer, guys. Don't be scared.
If you were, I apologize. Not for the technical difficulties, because that's not my responsibility, but for my lack of cool in the face of these technical difficulties. It really got to me. It's been a stressful, I don't know, long time of stress. So I apologize. But it may even that may be informed by the things I want to talk about in these films. So do you mind if I jump into my theory here?
Yes, you have prepared.
You do mind that I jump into my theory, or you don't?
I absolutely do not mind. I encourage it.
Okay. So here's what I think about these films. We're talking about Jojo Rabbit, directed by Taika Waititi, and A Marriage Story, written and directed by Noah Baumbach. Maybe Taika Waititi wrote Jojo Rabbit as well. I don't know. Maybe you could look that up. I'm not sure. So, Jojo Rabbit, presents a lighthearted Holocaust with Hitler. You know him. Remember
We know that
Adolf
guy.
Hitler?
That
Portrayed
crazy
as
kid.
sort of a goofy, nasty little troll, sort of a la Rumpelstiltskin, a character of fantasy, maybe. Now, this is why I'm glad we talked about the front, because when I watched it this time, what struck me was how little communism was mentioned at all in a movie that was where two of the main points were the end of World War II and Nazi propaganda aimed at Jews. And in general, when the Nazi propaganda that targeted Jews also sort of used Jews as synonymous with communists, and the Nazis, being hyper capitalist, were really, really hostile to communism. That's why when World War II ended and the United States pivoted from fighting the Germans to fighting the Cold War, the United States imported many Nazi spies, scientists, politicians, industrialists, folks with money and power to be a part of the US government in the battle against communism. And that all of that geopolitical wrangling was going on at the end of World War II, the time period in which this movie takes place. So that all of that history is entirely erased from this movie, and we're left with these goofy Nazis. Now, while Taika Waititi gave us a happy little Holocaust, Noah Baumbach in A Marriage Story gives us a completely harrowing tale of a divorce between a Jewish stage director in New York and a talented Hollywood actress. The director is played by Adam Driver, and the actress is played by Scarlett Johansson, who plays the main lead role in Jojo Rabbit, and in that film has a lot of shoe symbolism in it, including a real stark, like sort of like the dun dun, like the main dun 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 moment of the movie involves Scarlett Johansson and her shoes, which Will, you used in the image to promote this talk. So in A Marriage Story, in this harrowing divorce tale, I also noticed that now I've spent a lot of time in theater circles on the East Coast, and I've spent a lot of time in film circles on the West Coast. And in my experience, there's a lot of political conversations that go on in these circles, and that is as absent. The modern politics of our time are as absent from A Marriage Story as the geopolitics of the end of World War II are from Jojo Rabbit. So both films have, well, they've erased their red Jews, is how I would put it. And to me, A Marriage Story is way more Jewish, a film. There was something about it that made it a lot more traumatizing for me, because the Holocaust. I mean, I wish the Holocaust was like Taika Waititi gave it to us, with these goofy, lovable Nazis who can't shoot
Wouldn't
straight.
that be funny though if you could see like the lawyers were all like, woo-hoo!
But in A Marriage Story, we did get one character who was as chilling as I think the real Nazis were, and that's Laura Dern's character, the attorney who immediately sets up Adam Driver as the scapegoat of this marriage. And so I guess if the films are speaking to each other, what I think they're saying, and this, I'm really glad you brought up the front, because it's the opposite of this, is that a childish view of history leads to generational trauma. So Marriage Story is a story of generational trauma. Scarlett Johansson is, like, she talks about Adam Driver. She's like, there was something about there was some story about alcohol in his family. It's like, why did his family, why did his Why was there drinking in his family? What was the depression? What, you know, and if you are erasing people's culture and again, if his father, if he came, well, I guess he didn't come from New York. Adam Driver's character didn't come from New York, so I don't even really know. But I guess when I think of him as a Noah Baumbach character, and the way that Noah Baumbach has explored his relationship with his family in his other films, there's a lot of generational trauma going on there, and so this brings me. Sorry, I'm finding my notes here. This brings me to Scarlett Johansson, who is the. I think if there were just two films that featured shoes, I wouldn't have focused on it. But two films in which Scarlett Johansson was up for Oscars, in which shoes are so prevalent, that really struck me. So the thing about Scarlett Johansson as the sort of our sort of shiksa goddess in this story of these two Jewishy movies. And just in case anyone has read, where I read a Wikipedia thing, or read some definition of shiksa that said it was a negative, derogatory term, and anyone who would think that has just not spent any time around Jewish people. We love our shiksas, not the shitty ones, but the good ones, like Scarlett Johansson, who is anything but shitty. And one of the things to love about Scarlett Johansson is that I think her most creative relationship with an auteur director so far, in this sort of style of Leonardo DiCaprio or Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese, or say Michelle Williams and Kelly Reichardt, is her 3-film run with Woody Allen on films like Scoop and Match Point and Vicky Cristina Barcelona. And as we were saying, Woody Allen has been the target of his own sort of erasure of Red Jew energy with the campaign that's been led against him, which I would recommend, if anyone wants to hear my thoughts in greater detail on that, check out our episode of The World Is Wrong on wrongness, where we talk about the cases of Charlie Chaplin, Sinead O'Connor, and Woody Allen as examples of why we shouldn't be so quick to join or believe these kind of campaigns. But
do you
considering
view these movies as propaganda to a certain extent? I mean,
no, I view these films as the result of propaganda.
I
feel
that's a
like
good distinction.
Yeah, I feel like the propaganda, like the thing I'm talking about that erases the true history of World War II and communism and where America fits into that. I think a lot of that heavy lifting was done in the era that is talked about in the movie At the Front, between the 50s, between the end of World War II and the election of Ronald Reagan, let's say. And then by the time Ronald Reagan is in, that erasure is in full force. It's not, you don't need to propagandize people to have a faulty understanding of the end of World War II, because by then it's been fully enforced. And it really is only after the internet comes in that some people start being able to dig out of that that information blockade. So I guess I'm about to finish my notes here, because the other sort of interesting synchronicity for me is that Marriage Story is based upon Noah Baumbach's divorce with Jennifer Jason Leigh. So Scarlett Johansson and Jennifer Jason Leigh are kind of one person synchronistically in this film.
Okay.
And I was in a film called The Prom in 1990, in which I played the lead opposite Jennifer Jason Leigh. And at that time, she was in a relationship with the director. who is a guy from New York. He wasn't Noah Baumbach. His name's Steve Shainberg, great director. So I can't say that the movie, that when I watched the movie, I thought, oh, wow, that looks like what I remember of Jennifer Jason Leigh and Steven Shainberg. But when I watched it this time and was thinking about it synchronistically, I did start to see Scarlett Johansson and her family as having some resonance with what I remember.
Okay, I can go off about this if you'll allow me to.
Please do.
Okay, so The Prom is a story about you. You're this young man. I can't remember his name, but he's pocked by red birthmarks all over his body. What's that?
Calvin. Character's name is Calvin.
Calvin. That's right. So Calvin goes, basically, he's like starting to skip school. If I remember correctly, he's like a perfect student. He's got a little bit of sexual tension about some competitors, played by Cole Hauser, if I remember correctly. From I think people will know him most as Rip in Yellowstone, but Cole Hauser is your I don't know if there's no homosexual tension, but there's like some competition between the two of you. But Calvin is sneaking away because he can't take his shirt off. Like,
oh, sorry, it's not Calvin, it's Marty. Calvin's a different movie. Sorry, Marty. I played another nerd in a different movie called Calvin.
That's Slime Ball. Are you Calvin? Yes. Yes, that's right. Because Calvin is a beloved character. Anyways, The Prom is really a movie that no one has seen. If anyone who is watching this right now is interested in what the heck we're talking about, then go down to the description because I have linked The Prom on Vimeo there. All right. Now, that being said, the basic storyline is that he's sneaking into like a, what do you call them? Like a strip arcade, where there's a stripper behind a piece of glass and you can basically tell her what to do. And he keeps giving money to Jennifer Jason Leigh. Until the point where she and he become friends, and then she's like, take your shirt off, and makes him start stripping for her. But
well, actually, like to back up, he is going to the stripper booth and paying her to show him, like, he's not going there to see her naked. He's going there to like experiment with revealing his deformity to another person.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. But that's her Scarlet Woman. Like, you say that's related to ScarJo, because ScarJo is basically in the same marital position in The Marriage Story. Like, she's playing Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Jennifer Jason Leigh's future relationship past or post prom, right? Like, the problem is when it's the same thing. It's like a repeat of the same relationship in a lot of ways, with the symbolic relationship, with the symbolic around Scar being like she's the Scarlet Woman, so to speak. And individuals on this show who have done these before have mentioned very recently that Scarlett Johansson plays like, or kind of holds that the Babylonish like goddess archetype recently. Do you get what I mean?
What sense? Like, what's an example of her?
Well, her name is Scarlett, and you mentioned Scoop. Scoop is a good example because Scoop's got the tarot card with the Scarlet Woman like right on the front of it.
Yeah.
So I can totally convince you because of Scoop, but there's more. Like, people have mentioned other things and said that, the one that we were talking about the other day was Asteroid City, where she's like the movie star. And have you seen that?
I haven't seen it yet. It's one of those movies I want to see so badly that I keep putting it off.
I think, well, here's the thing, like, bringing it back to Jojo Rabbit, I'm far more like dumbfounded by what Wes Anderson's trying to tell me than by Taika Waititi. Like, there's a certain amount of Taika Waititi stuff is almost like the snarkiness of what it reminds me of is I used to read like Mad Magazine and Cracked. You remember those old magazine Cracked that it would make fun and make goofy of the movies that were popular?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like. It's like there's cartoonish characters.
Yeah, no, I would say Jojo Rabbit seems like it's pitched at about the level of Mad Magazine. Although Mad Magazine had a no, no, Mad Magazine was still more sophisticated, I think.
See, I agree with you though. And I don't like the fact that he does that. Like, I know this is nerdish, but to talk about like Star Wars, Taika Waititi has like directed certain episodes of The Mandalorian, in which
Yeah.
he made a whole joke using Saturday Night Live like comedians to have stormtroopers not be able to hit this coffee can. And there's a point where you're like, you're destroying the universe. You get what I'm saying? Like the all of the stakes are going outside of the window, and he does that. Like this Jojo, he does it in Ragnarok too. Because if you called it a Holocaust, like Jojo Rabbit is a Holocaust, but in a way it's like a Ragnarok too, right? Because it's the Germans' end. It's this like Norwegian mythology of their world coming to an end, and all the women and children are coming out to the street to like throw grenades at the Gentiles or something. It's just there's something about it that I liked Jojo Rabbit because it is heartfelt. The whole scenes with he and his mother and everything of that nature, but there's a weirdness about him inserting himself as Hitler in there, where that almost seems gimmicky or something.
It's funny. That's not to me. That's him playing it doesn't make it. That's not the problem. And I don't even think it's funny because I think the movie would be so much stronger if the Hitler character was exactly the same, but all the Nazis were genuinely evil and like effective and like marginally German. I mean, it's so funny. I can imagine a German watching it and being like, "Well, I like that you made." I mean, it's sort of like it's a doubly insulting. First, you insult our history by making all of these like this was a terrible time, and you're making light of it, and also we were really good at being Nazis, and these people are just buffoons. They could never have invaded Poland. These Nazis, so yeah. I think,
but it's kind of like it's like they have the Book of the Jews, right? The little kid is making this whole documentary book about
the Book of the Shoes.
The Book of the Shoes. It's just a whole book of shoes. I'm gonna have to, because I think that's at the crux of it right there. When you mention that about the abundance of the Jewish shoes and like the gulags and stuff, like the
concentration camps, like they stole all their. I was, if you saw I think maybe not the last season, but the second to last season of Curb Your Enthusiasm, it ends with an episode where Larry David goes to visit the Holocaust Museum, and it's raining, and his shoes get destroyed, and one of them goes through a drain or something, and so he steals some shoes from this pile of shoes at the Holocaust Museum, and then gets in trouble for it. And that's Larry David humor. But yeah, when I think of, like, that's what I think of. If that was going to title this episode, I would call it Red Jews, because there's just like the film erases the history, the influence of communism on the end of World War II. The movie, the plot erases our redheaded heroine and her red shoes, and you don't even, like, in her death, she is, all that's left are the red shoes, and there's like, she is gone, she's erased, like history, like that aspect is erased from history.
Was she so much like everything is desolate and dead, and you're talking about like the red shoes, but it's really like they're almost like clown shoes, like she's so alive and vibrant. She is. She's wearing like bright clothes. She's very peacock. peacockish, all of this bad shit's happening, and she's like the biggest the brightest like shining star in this boy's life.
Yeah,
Like,
she's pulling a Life is Beautiful. She's like trying to shield him from the harshness of war.
but there's also the whole thing where they see, like, where he's talking to the Jewish girl in the closet, and he's like, if you were going to be free, what would you do? And she says something along the lines of like, dance, you know, like the most free thing an individual can do is dance. And so at the end of the show, that's basically what they're doing, right? They come out the door and then they start just dancing to We Could Be Heroes by David Bowie in the German years. But like the dancing shoes are what I'm getting at. Like I mean, obviously the connection in both, the symbolic reverence is, or I guess it's reverence or reference. It has to do with coming of age, like being able to tie your shoes, like. But so I kind of annoys me that she's the one who ties his shoes in Marriage Story. Like, it bugs me.
Why?
Because she's the one who has all the foot problems. Like, she, at the very beginning, when they're coming, like the dad's reading, he kind of gets kicked out. The child says, I want to be with mom. So she comes out of the door and she's had a bunch of wine, and she it like literally, it happened so quick that I couldn't take a steal, but she slips down the stairs and it shows her missing a step. Right. So there's this idea of her being childish, like her being irresponsibly drunk to the point where it could be brought up in court again later, right? And then after that, when they're talking about moving away from, like, she's trying to get him, you say he's not from New York, but that's where they're living, right?
That's what at the beginning she says, even though he's not from New York, he's the most New York. So he's someone who adopted New York as his home when he was a teen, like in his late teens. And
he's in love with it. He won't leave it. She's trying to get him to spend more time in LA, but he won't. And so now she's using Laura Dern to kind of like position him to where he has to. And so even in the movie posters, like, it's her silhouette with LA in the negative space, and his picture is New York inside of his space. So, you know, it's like, it's 112% like autobiographically talking about Jennifer, Jason, Lee, and Noah, right?
Yeah.
It's probably pretty authentic but when she's at this, she's dressed as Jim Carrey at this Halloween like party, and she stomps her feet, which is a very childish act, right? To like stomp your feet because you're not getting your way is a very like, and then that's when she starts sleeping with this other guy. But then, so it's her shoe, like her fucking shoe should be tied. Am I wrong in thinking that? And even in the end of Jojo, that's what happens, right? If we go back to Jojo, she tries to tie his shoe like 15 times in the movie. And then she's the one who doesn't cross her T's and dot her I's, and she gets herself into a lot of trouble. And then when he sees her shoes, he's trying to tie it. And, you know, the whole Jojo Rabbit ears, like when you're tying a shoe, that's how you usually talk about it in the form of a rabbit.
Yeah. No, those are all there. Yeah, I couldn't, I didn't see it so much as like the coming of age, although that makes sense. And it does tie into mine, which is that by choosing to have a simplistic or a childish view of history, sort of as a culture, we stay infantilized. Like we are unable to learn the lessons of, you know, that a mature society learns. We stay in sort of a constant you know, yeah, a constant state of childhood, like a kind like, and you, I mean, it's funny because we live in it. We just went through an election where it was so many simplistic binaries, and like it just, it's not, we're trying to solve complex and sophisticated problems by shouting, you know, Nazi or brainworm at each other. And it just, that's that's a childish way to respond. So I think maybe we're coming at the same thing.
Yeah,
Which,
from two different angles, but it's basically
yeah,
about immaturity, right?
yeah,
Huh. I like it though. I mean, it's there. There's no way anybody can convince me. Like we can cut up the shoes a couple of different ways. Like I would like to see what other people think, but it's there. That's like the main thing. Whether, you know, you say it's I question Marriage Story because it seems like it's intentional. Like the whole the main impact of both films is almost identical. It's just like a reverse role, so to speak. And how that flies up underneath the radar and no one notices but you. And I think that it's important to understand that sometimes it's not necessarily like the Illuminati like controlling movies to inject propaganda in people that we need to focus on, but really kind of like if the movie was a dream, how do we see the shoelaces, or how do we see the shoes as a symbolic representation of like the whole culture? Like obviously those movies both together are talking to everybody in that like time period, so to speak. And I don't know, like the function. I don't understand the function. Like I know that there is one, but I don't understand like how like okay, to me it's useful. To me it's something that I can kind of like learn something about myself out of both movies, and be like, keep my shoe tied or whatever, but also like don't fall for childish propaganda. You get what I'm saying? So I'm trying to like encourage that point of view of just accepting it,
well,
because a lot of
like think
people would
about it.
say if it doesn't have a use, then it's what's the purpose?
Just think about it. Like if you like, to me, I think the scene in the film that is the in Marriage Story that is the most difficult for me to watch is the scene where Scarlett Johansson is sitting on the couch and Laura Dern is sort of manipulating her, and her affect in that, and I hadn't really thought about it, is that it's like a child. Like you're cutting her slack because she's being clearly being manipulated away out of her agreements, and out, like, instead of continuing along the path that of having an amicable divorce with her husband, she is caught up in this preemptive thing that Laura Dern is doing. And like a Nazi, she's just doing her job. She's just doing the right thing. Her job is to protect her client. It doesn't matter that she's not her client yet. Uh, and it's questionable whether or not destroying half of the partnership that's raising this kid is going to actually help the system. But watching Laura Dern do her shtick and watching Scarlett Johansson sort of allow herself to be led. And to me, I think that's the biggest moral question in the film. Is she manipulated into this, or is she happy to be manipulated into this so that she doesn't have to take responsibility for it? and just sort of accept this narrative that of course, oh, yes, she's the victim of this relationship, which seems to be like a normal breaking up relationship. There's no obvious sign of like that one partner is evil and the other partner is good. It's just one partner got to the good lawyer first. I think if the movie if Adam Driver had done the same thing to Scarlett Johansson that she does to him in this movie,
Right.
it would be clear that he was the villain.
Right. That's a great point. Hey, I just
so
have like
there
a brain bullet. Wait, I got something. I got something. The little girl in the closet in Jojo, the Jew girl in the closet, I kind of associate with Jennifer Jason Leigh in the closet at the prom, bro. Like her little arcade room is sort of like the closet, right? And
kind of, but that's really, I don't really even want to think of that poor girl in that, like, she's not sexualized in that way. And
she is, in a way. She's sexualized by Jojo. Jojo kind of makes her like his love interest in a lot of ways. He's kind of like growing more and more, and then the whole time, like his mom is telling him that, you know, you need to find someone that you'll find. Don't worry, you'll find somebody that you're low. How will I know? Like he's talking about the girl the whole time.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Now, like I said before, my man, you started singing Elvis Costello.
Okay.
Oh, yes. This is good. I'm excited. I'm even going to put myself on mute.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis Costello's. What is the name of the song? Angels?
You'll hear.
Okay.
Well,
all right.
I used to be disgusted, but now I try to be amused. But since the wings have gotten rusted, you know, the angels want to wear my red shoes. But when they told me about the side of the bargain, that's when I knew that I could not refuse. And I won't get any older now. The angels want to wear my red shoes. I was watching while you're dancing away. Our love got fractured in the echo and sway. How come everybody wants to be your friend? You know it still hurts me just to say it. Oh, I know that she's disgusted. Oh, why's that? 'Cause she's feeling so abused. Yeah, that's too bad. She gets tired of the lust. Oh, that's so sad. But it's so hard to refuse. How can you say that I'm too old when the angels have stolen my red shoes? I said I'm so happy I could die. She said drop dead and left with another guy. That's what you get when you go chasing after vengeance. But since you got me punctured, that's become my sentence. Well, I used to be disgusted, but now I try to be amused. But since the wings have gotten rusted, you know the angels want to wear my red shoes. But when they told me about the side of the bargain, that's when I knew that I could not refuse. And I won't get any older now. The angels want to wear my red shoes. I won't get any older now. The angels want to wear my red shoes. Red shoes, the angels want to wear my red shoes. Red shoes, the angels want to wear my red shoes. Red shoes, the angels want to wear my red shoes. Red shoes. Ow! Angels Want to Wear My Red Shoes from Elvis Costello's first album, My Aim Is True. And that's my version. So You don't have to get your knickers in a bunch, YouTube. No copyright infringement. Just send all the money to Elvis.
Well said. Well said. Now, like, you've got to take a trip, right? Like, have you been touring all year? Is that basically how it's been going?
I've been working on putting out my new record, Recognize, De-Escalate, and Decode, all year. Playing shows, putting out videos, spending money on YouTube ads and Instagram boosts and all the things that all the hip kids are doing these days. But I'm going to get the record so you can see the cover. Hold on a second.
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah, I know that you've been in like within some weather too.
Hold on a second. I didn't hear what you said. Say it again.
Some weather.
Oh yeah, I was in the hurricane in Asheville. Here's the record. Recognize, De-Escalate, and Decode.
Perfect.
And yeah, I was supposed to play a show in Asheville on the day of the hurricane and got stuck there. And probably should have got stuck there more, but I did some sort of dangerous things to get out to get to the next gig. Driving when they told people they shouldn't on roads you weren't supposed to drive on when there's no with down power lines and trees and those people really went through it.
Wow, it looked pretty crazy. So what's next? What are you doing next? What do you got planned?
I'm going. It's been a long year of putting out this record, and when it gets time, we're getting close to the solstice, and I'm ready to just let this
relax,
let this year die and be reborn, coming into light, and right now I'm just ready to go dark for solstice.
Well, I want to thank you for showing up, man, because I know it's pretty much been a half-day thing. Cheers for real.
Yeah.
It's literally, we'll do it better next time. There's a couple of different ideas that I have. One is specifically talking about your work, but good God, man, like I absolutely enjoyed watching these two movies together, strictly because you told me there was something there. And like, I don't really have an opinion on if the movies are good or not. Like, I think that just the shoestring between the two kind of like make them important to me. And kind of made them more impactful and stuff. And so like, I don't know if anybody else noticed that, but that's a good catch. I want to tell you, like, that's a good catch. That's what we call a meta egg. That's a sink, bro. It's something.
Well, yeah, I got to say, I spent like every time I met someone who talked about one of the films since then, I asked, have you seen the other one? And no, I have not. I had met no one until we had this conversation, and you had to go and watch. I've met no one who has seen both films. I'm sure Scarlett Johansson and her agents and whatnot probably have.
Well, she must have been. She was busy, dude. Like, she did the Black Widow thing at the same time period. Then there's like right afterwards, there's that Wes Craven like Asteroid City thing, and like
Wes Anderson.
Wes. What did I say?
You said Wes Craven.
Wes Craven. That's you. If anyone doesn't know, Andras Jones was in Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street. Back in the 80s.
Unfortunately, I was in Rennie Harlan's Nightmare on Elm Street, but yes, I was in the fourth one.
Tomato.
I mean, he created the universe. I was in Wes Craven's universe. I'd like to be in Wes Anderson's universe, but you get what you get. I mean,
the multiverse is a Wes.
I know we're wrapping up, and so if you don't want to, but there's a part of me that feels like we didn't quite give Scarlett Johansson her full due, her full sync due. I guess Scarlet Woman. I don't know. I think she's such an impressive.
She's just
actor.
prolific. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of like risk she's taken, like a lot of movies that people like Black Widow and things of those nature, that nature. I
Well, I don't
mean,
know if that was a risk, but I like Under the Skin, the three Woody Allen films. Yeah. Did you see the one about faking the moon landing
oh, the
with
one with
Channing Tatum?
yes, have not seen it. I knew it was coming out because that's like this year, isn't it? That was earlier
Yeah,
this year. So what
yeah.
did you think?
Yeah, way to make a really fun conspiracy theory unfun.
It was a boring ass movie, or was it just not? What it kind of did it spoof? Did it spoof the theory?
It was, yeah, it spoofed it and it debunked it, and it was, it's always that these, like, it's the hedge on the theory. Like, I remember, like, so I never really I don't buy conspiracy theories because I don't have any agency to do anything about them, but I enjoy them because I think that the official story is almost always incorrect. So anything that is correct is going to live somewhere between in the Venn diagram between the official story and reality, and that's going to be a conspiracy theory until someone proves it or disproves it. But in this case, it's like, yes, they got to the moon, but they filmed a fake lunar landing so that in case they weren't able to get the footage from the moon, they could show the fake footage. And that's always made sense to me as the most reasonable space in the Venn diagram, in between we never went to the moon and it was all fake, and everything went perfect, and that there's nothing to that, the people who see these anomalies. And I always thought that was a pretty cool way to sort of thread the needle until I saw a movie that was based upon that theory. And I was just like, well, that's no fun anymore. Now it's just, it just took all the joy out of, I don't know, out of that point of view. Oh, you're bringing up Her, where she's the AI.
But it's very, I mean, even the movie poster is kind of like hinting at Scarlet Woman energy, you know?
Also hinting at Woody Allen energy.
God, he is a fucking Woody Allen character, isn't he?
Yes.
That's not who does this, though, is it? This
No.
is the same guy who did
Spike Jonze, right?
Oh, this is Spike Jonze. Holy shit. Is it? God damn. Right? That's what it says right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he did Being John Malkovich, right? Spike Jonze is... Okay, what about Lucy? Lucy is the same kind of baggage, right? It's the Scarlet Woman.
I think of Lucy and Under the Skin as being the analogs. Like, Lucy is the sort of the fun Hollywood version of Under the Skin, which is the art film, sort of the Jonathan Glazer art film. Have you seen that one, Under the Skin?
What year do you think that is? I haven't seen it.
Probably like probably 2005, 6 maybe. She plays an alien who comes to Earth and looks like Scarlett Johansson, so she seduces these men and then devours them. But the way she devours them is filmed in such a way that it's way more artistic. Like, it's more like what the guys experience than what is happening to them. Really, Jonathan Glazer, the guy who just did Zone of Interest and did Birth, he's one of the, I think generally is regarded as one of the great, like the truly great just great filmmakers going right now.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
No, I have
but in
not
both
seen
films, she plays someone who looks like Scarlett Johansson, who becomes some sort of
14.
world-killing monster. But in Under the Skin, she really is a monster who's learning how to be like learning what she is. And um
So I mean, I guess you could group her, Lucy, and Under the Skin together in that context, because hers kind of the same
yeah,
idea.
yeah.
In Jungle Book, she's Ka, if I remember, like the hypnotizing snake. So
Mm,
there's this whole Lilith baggage going on. All right, do you disagree with that, or
not at all.
okay? The other
I
Bolin, Don Juan. Do you know about? Have you
Oh,
seen
Don
this?
John.
Don
That's the
John.
one
Excuse me.
where she plays a New York girl, like she total New York accent. She's like totally Donnie, and Don John plays this sort of playboy, fuckboy kind of guy who meets his match in Scarlett Johansson.
So what about Scoop? What do you think about Scoop?
I love it. It's the most lightweight of her films with Woody Allen, but I enjoy it.
What do you mean by
They really
lightweight?
have it's like the other film, like Match Point is pretty heavy. Vicky Cristina Barcelona is more of a like ambitious cinematically in terms of scope. And Scoop is just a goofy little detective romp where she and Woody Allen are just, I don't know, where she's constantly putting Woody Allen down. That's very funny. Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's in Sing too, isn't she? Black Widow was 2020. This is Marriage Story. So Marriage Story was and JoJo were leading up to the Black Widow movie.
Yeah, but Black Widow had been made years before, like several years before, and they just kept putting it off. That's one of the things about Black
Her
Widow.
suing
Mhm.
Disney because of the whole streaming controversy. What do you think
Yeah.
about it? Because it's weird because I just went to a conference that like showed diagrams on like the streaming charts, and traditional broadcasting and streaming are basically like 50-50. This is the first year that they've been 50-50. Traditional broadcasting has pretty much been the majority up until now. And then they predict that streaming will go over. But then the next thing that they showed are the profits from streaming. And all the money's still coming to traditional broadcasting. Like nobody's making money off of streaming yet. And then YouTube is still only like fucking like 10% of the market. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody knows. I'm sure somebody knows. I don't know. Don't that's beyond my ability to even fathom it. Other than that, as a film artist, I feel like film artistry is not going to benefit.
Oh, that's right. She's like the zoo assistant in the Damon movie with Zoo. Just kind of, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, the ones that jump out that I think of are that are also important. Her first, like one of her first films, I think, is The Horse Whisperer with Robert Redford. I think that's pretty interesting. Definitely, Ghost World and Lost in Translation. Lost in Translation is probably the first one that really puts her on the map as a heavy hitter. Um,
Who is Lost in Translations? Like, who's the director?
that's Sofia Coppola.
That's Sofia Coppola with the, wait, I feel like I'm missing the screenwriter too. Lost in Translation is the,
I think it's her own script, her own
is it
screenplay.
her or Kaufman or whatever
It is
his name?
definitely not Kaufman.
Okay. Ghost World, which is the one you mentioned earlier. The Man Who Wasn't There.
Another
Eight-Legged
Coen brothers.
Freaks.
Yeah, it was written and directed by Sofia Coppola.
All right. So
Okay. Well, we gave a little bit of an overview there.
it was.
But yeah, it's getting late. I got to drive to Olympia in the morning. You got to edit this and get it up online.
I'll
Or
take care of it. But
whatever you got to
everybody
do.
who's watching, please subscribe, share this with whoever you want, hit the little bell, all of the good things, because honestly, you never know when one of these things will drop. Sooner or later, we're going to have technical difficulties and have to do it again like tonight. But good God, Andras, thank you. Good performance. Like everything, I think that we're still up and live. We've passed copyright miraculously.
Cool.
And when you get back in town, I'd like to talk to you about another project,
Okay.
about
Well,
your own work, because I don't think people know who you are. Today, you are the film expert, but when you come back, I need to talk about your work in particular. So,
well, I look forward to it. And for those of you who stuck around, I can't see who's on, but thank you for sticking around for this. I hope it was valuable. And if you enjoyed this conversation, there are other conversations like it at the World Is Wrong podcast. And if you like my singing, you can find my music, all my stuff at previouslyyours.com. And the record is called Recognize, De-Escalate, and Decode, and it's on all the streaming services. And I think we'll put links in all the notes. So thank you very much.
all right, guys, thank you so much, as he said, and we'll see you next time.